What have you been up to lately?
I just finished putting like bows on my crops, like it's a PEM slang.
All right.
It's like to keep the bugs out of the kale,
All
basically.
right. Yeah.
We have this huge net that goes over the kale, and it's been destroyed this winter because there was so much snow. So the snow covered the nets, and then it kind of destroyed them. And to prevent it from destroying them entirely, I took the snow away. But the problem was that the deer, the only thing they could see for miles that was green was our kale. So they ate the kale through the nets. So now the nets are destroyed. So we have to kind of fix the nets and also put them up. So that's what I've been doing, and also killing some slugs, like the Spanish forest slug we have here, which is an invasive species, which doesn't have any natural enemies. So there's a lot of them, and they eat everything very quickly. So you have to kind of find a way of killing.
Do you kill them by hand?
Yeah, I kill them by hand.
You kill them by hand.
It's very
I
satisfying.
heard that you can put a beer can.
Yeah, they crawl into.
You open it and then you crawl into it.
Yeah,
like
it's like a
sugar.
beer trap. Yeah, and they stay there and they drown.
Yeah.
That's very good. I've been thinking about doing that for a long time, but it's just too many steps.
What?
So for me, it's just
drink
easier
a beer.
to have, to like have drink a beer. Then you have to like remember not to put it in the recycling and put it outside.
Yeah.
So I have to. I don't know if you have to cut it or if you could just dig it down as it is. No.
I don't know.
Yeah. So anyways, I just kill them by hand because it's a bit more satisfying.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It just there's like this when you're growing a crop and something tries to eat it, and you know how much effort it is to make these plants grow. Just for me, it just wakes some basic instinct of wanting to kill the thing that threatens my food, basically. So for me, killing them by hand is usually the way I do it, because it's more like, okay, I find one and then I keep doing whatever I was doing.
You feel satisfaction from killing it?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you do. Come back. Take this. Slowly putting the knife.
Just go. It's kind of addictive too. When you find one, you're like, it's like picking mushrooms, basically. Once you start, you're like, oh, here's one, and here's one, and here's one. You just keep going, and you forget what other things you were doing. We
haven't these type of snails here now.
That's a blessing, man.
Yeah. I've heard that you have to be careful when you bring like plants. The roots can have
really
eggs.
Careful. Yeah. You should be really careful, because once you have them, you're probably not getting rid of them, and it really entails a work of keeping them, like keeping the population low. Like if you don't grow crops for a year, for example, and you don't like tend your garden and kill the snails off, the next year you will have like twice as many or something, because nothing eats them. Like there's no natural enemy for them here. I don't know what their natural enemy is in Spain, like if it's ducks or I don't know. Ducks eat them.
Yeah, ducks eat them.
You don't have ducks. Like having ducks is a project.
No. That's a big project.
Yeah, you need a pond and everything.
Yeah.
And they shit everywhere, probably.
Yeah. Could you eat the snails?
I actually read an article. I just read an article that says you can, but they're like tasteless and kind of like sega.
Yeah.
Like
mushy.
Yeah, mushy, not that nice. And you have to fry them because they eat like feces and corpses, which is not kind of the thing you might want to have in a thing that you're eating.
Oh, no.
Like if you're eating a vulture, like you're not eating the stomach of the vulture, but.
So when you grow, are you more focused? I've seen your crops last year. It seems to me like you're more kind of focused on just enjoying it and growing delicious crops instead of like bulking.
Yeah, we're kind of I'm not going to take all the credit. It's really my fiance who's doing the most of the work and the planning. But we're growing mostly kale and tomatoes. Yeah. Because kale keeps all year. Like you can keep it in the winter as well. Like last year, like we had kale until March, so we had like our own salad like until March, and then we had like 2 months without our own salad, and then after like in May, like May, June, you get your own salad because you have the other salad. And also kale is very expensive, like buying it in the store. Like if you're eating a lot of kale, like we do, it's really expensive. It's like 30 crowns for like just a bunch of it. It's not that much, like a knippe. It's like 3 euros basically. And if you eat a lot, that it gets very expensive very quickly. So that's why. And also tomatoes is like, if you've never eaten your own tomatoes, you should do it. Like you should grow tomatoes. Just grow one plant to learn what they actually taste like. Because if you only buy them at the supermarket, it's like a world of difference. You won't buy tomatoes for the rest of the year because you have your own tomatoes. Like you just know what your own tomatoes taste like. So like like growing your own tomatoes, it's a world of difference to buying one in the supermarket. So that's why. And then we have spices, basically for making tea mostly, like salvia and different kind of mint, peppermint, and so on. Those things. Leah, we have to talk to the dog. Come.
We have a dog here.
We have a puppy. She's a teenage puppy. She's not very happy with being indoors, I think. It's very warm for her.
Yeah, it is very warm here, but she will get distracted if we open the door.
Yeah, I think so. She's a Finnish lapphund. She's what's it called? The ones that are supposed to keep the reindeer or the deers or the renar. I guess it's reindeer.
Reindeers. Yeah.
Reindeers. They're supposed to keep the reindeers at the same place, like at the feeding grounds. They're supposed to keep them around. So she has a lot of fur. So it's pretty warm for her. Like,
oh yeah,
we bought some cold plates for her, like to keep her cold in the car. She's really like, oh, I know.
She needs a freezer, man.
Yeah, she needs a freezer. she'd live in the freezer if she could. Yeah, I know. Lig, she doesn't listen now. She's a teenager.
And what's your with getting a dog?
Mm-hmm.
What was your intention with getting a dog?
Well, we were thinking about getting a dog before we got pregnant with my son. And then we had him, and that was a very busy time then. And then we kind of, in the last Christmas, we went to my fiance's grandmother's place. And her brother was there, and he had a dog of the same race. And it was just really nice to hang out with a dog. And I've been thinking about getting a dog since I was like 15 or 14 even. And my fiance, she's never had a dog. She's like a cat person. So she was the one pushing for it for some reason. And for me, it was like, yeah, of course we get a dog. And then we got a dog, and it just feels very natural to me to have a dog. Like, for her, it doesn't. Sometimes she panics, like every once a month. She's like, God, we got a dog, Jesus. Like when she doesn't behave exactly like she wanted to. Yeah. And like she's barking and whatever. And I'm just like, it's fine. It's fine. She's a dog. It'll be fine. We're raising her well. She gets a lot of exercise and it's great. Like it's like getting for Esaias, my son. For him, it's like getting a sibling. It's really the same thing. Like if you have kids and then have a dog, make sure that you have planned to have a dog. I think my experience is that most people seem to have, when they get a dog, like the main kind of process of the thought process before getting a dog is like, is it cute? And then they get it and they're like, holy shit, there's a lot of exercise and I have to I have to exercise the dog. Like I have to walk I walk with her like 2 hours a day.
Oh my God.
Like 1 hour in the morning. And then the first thing I do when I get home, I take a walk with her. And Martina walks her in the day as well. So, and I think that's like really minimum. Like she needs that. But well, I mean, she is a kind of an exercisey dog. She needs a lot of moving around. But it's funny because you get to talk to people you never talked to before, like in the neighborhood. Yeah. Like, because I walk her all the time, and then you see someone else has a dog, and they have this big, Like they have a fence and they have a like big lawn, and it's like you just talk to them like, "Hi, can the dogs play?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure," because their dog is really understimulated as well. So then they run around there for like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes, and then they're both like really tired, and then I go back home. And then like a week later you find out that someone else also has a dog, and then they start playing, and she's really like, yeah, she's a really competent dog, and socially competent. So she plays really well with a lot of different dogs. The only ones that she doesn't play well with are the small ones. She's not big, but she's used to, like, she's pretty tough. So she doesn't like small dogs. She's like, she wants to play with them, and she like puts a paw in their face, and they're like, and then they like bark at her, and she's like, okay. And like 2 seconds later, she's like doing the same thing over again. So she has to learn to play with smaller dogs. But it's really made a difference, like in our lives. Like I spend a lot of time outdoors. Like I work in an office otherwise, and I don't really walk. I don't really take walks. I haven't been training because it's just not really didn't really happen since we have kids. Getting a routine, but now I walk a lot, which is better than not working. And I spend most of my free time with her, which is like, I'd like to spend more time with my son. But it's a bit difficult to find the time, but he wants to join on the walks a lot of times. So
I guess that's my fear of getting a dog, that it really needs your time and energy, and that it takes away the time and energy from being with my child.
It does, and the child will feel it as well.
Yeah,
like they will feel that they had like a competitor, like a sibling, kind of.
We have 2 cats. I last week I felt like, oh no, they take more than what they give, actually.
Yeah.
But they give a lot of love to Leia, our 3-year-old, and I could see myself having a dog in the future, but right now it's no.
It also, you are a bit younger and you have a different life. Like we're pretty settled. We're not really going anywhere. So for us, getting a dog was a kind of easy choice in a sense.
But I can hear you that it gives you.
Yeah, it does. It takes away a lot of my thinking. I think that's because I'm a person who thinks a lot, and I follow a lot of podcasts, and I think about the world and like conflicts and whatever.
Yeah, let's get into that shit.
Yeah, that's what I spend most of my time
let's
thinking about.
Let's switch up the small talk to some deep talk.
Yeah, because...
what have you been into now then?
Yeah.
Thinking about the world.
I was listening to this podcast, Diary of a CEO. He interviews a lot of interesting people. And I was talking to this billionaire who like put capital like förvaltade, what's it called? When you take care of other people's money and you put them in funds and stocks and so on.
A broker.
Like a stockbroker.
Yeah.
Like he started in the 60s, which when the stock wasn't really a thing. Like the stock trading wasn't really like investment wasn't something you worked with, kind of. He's been working with it for a long time, and he was talking about the huge AI bubble, and he's like, I'm not investing any money in stocks, I'm selling everything. And he's like, it's obvious that there's this is an AI bubble, like the same way as the railways were a bubble and the IT bubble was also like bubbles, and this is an obvious bubble and it's huge. Because all of the companies with any... Oh, it's fine. All the companies with any, like for example, Google and Apple and all these big companies, they had like basically monopoly on each of their like the niches that they were in. And now suddenly they don't. They are all focusing on AI. And there can only be probably one company that does the AI and then one company that does the hardware. And so they have to focus on different things, and they all have to change, but they're all interested in like valuing up their own stocks. And so AI is the like kind of common gemensamma nämnare, how do you say that? Like that's what they have in common. They're all working with AI. And he kind of warned that the bubble is gonna burst.
When?
Of course it's gonna burst, like the AI bubble.
Did he say something about how long
no, he
or
just
when
said
or
like within a few years probably.
yeah.
And I think he's right. Like, look, I'm not like I'm not an expert. just a guy who likes following the geopolitical movements around. Where I'm just looking at like Ukraine and Iran a little bit, like those conflicts. I think is very interesting, and also just interesting to see how society and how people in our society, like in Sweden, we have had a long period of peace. Like it's difficult for people to even imagine like what does a crisis situation look like. Like it doesn't have to be war, just a crisis. Like what does it entail? What does it mean for my life? Like most people seem to think like, oh, if there's like a crisis, then I'll just, take my can of ravioli and settle in the basement for like a week. And I don't know, that just seems to be like that's what I see, like the common kind of idea of the crisis. Like it's completely different from regular life. And I think that's what people have to like adjust to. That first of all, I think we have to be able to talk about really difficult things without getting so worked up about it. Like you have to be able to face that the climate crisis, if we don't do anything about it, it's a complete disaster. We have to be able to keep that in mind and not be like, oh, it's all screwed up, let's not do anything, let's just have this kind of fatalistic attitude. You have to be able to talk about these things and like also like the Swedish like defense situation, like being able to protect your own country now that the US is kind of off on its own and talking about leaving kind of Europe to its own devices to protect itself, and like kind of stepping back from NATO, which I think is, it's really stupid for the US to do that. I mean, the EU is a very important ally for the US, but when they start talking like that, then it becomes really obvious that we in Europe have been living under the protection of the US. Like we've been living under the American nuclear umbrella. Like that means that, America has a lot of nuclear weapons, and Europe has some as well. But the amount of nuclear weapons and the proficiency to use them in the US, probably they haven't been tested for a long time. But there is reason to believe that the US could actually conduct a nuclear strike if they wanted to. And this is like a terror balance that's been going on since the nukes were invented. Like the terror balance between superpowers. Like no one is using nuclear weapons, but the threat of nuclear weapons is very real. And like if Russia, for example, they've been using nuclear threats since the beginning of the Ukraine war with great success. They haven't used any weapons, but they've been using the threat of using weapons as a means to stop NATO and other countries from supporting Ukraine. And they have delayed support for Ukraine in a lot of different ways. Like the support now it's there, like Ukraine has all their systems and so on, but it's taken longer than it had to. Like if the West would have supported Ukraine full on from the beginning, I think the war could have been differently. Maybe could have already stopped. I don't know. But it's interesting because like it's really a lot of things going on in the world right now. I think it's just really fascinating and like this is one of the. I mean, historically, it's just insane how many things are going on at the same time. Like
everything is escalating.
Yeah, things are kind of escalating, and the empires are kind of crumbling. I mean, the US has so much national debt, and it's acting really strangely, just alienating its allies, and just I don't know what it's doing. And Russia is kind of digging its own grave again, like just stuck in a war with a country that it's a lot larger than, and it's still kind of losing. Yeah. And I mean, and all this, like, and the one thing that all the nations has in common that's a problem is like the fertility rate and people getting kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one, like, to go on another tangent, and I think that's a huge thing that's going on that we're not really like.
Yeah, was it China that is or was it Japan?
Japan and South Korea are really like stuck in a. South Korea has like a, latest I checked was that they had like a fertility rate of 0.75
Right.
per woman, which means one woman gives birth to 0.05 kids, and you need 2.01, I think, is the number you have to have in order to like ensure that you're still producing like
as many as we are or they are now, or like or to grow.
No, to keep a like a kind of a growth, but to keep it steady.
How many did you say?
2 point. I think it's 2.1. 2.1 probably.
All
Yeah.
right.
It has to be like because of course some die younger before they get kids, and like you have to have. But that's like the economy needs that.
Yeah, I've heard that it said that it's going to be half the population by the next generation. Do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean the math is probably right on.
Yeah.
And I mean, they have a system. I mean, both South Korea and Japan, and I think a lot of other countries that have this same problem, is that like the women refuse to have kids in South Korea and Japan as well, because it ruins their careers. Like if you have a kid in your 30s and whatever, you lose your entire 30s basically to having just staying at home with a kid. And so when you get back to the job market, especially in the rate that things are moving now, you might not have an attractive education, you might not have the right experience or skill set that the job market needs. So they refuse to get kids, which I think is yeah. So there's one clip on YouTube, this guy who framed it kind of funny. Like he said, like, do you know how much you have to abuse a mammal for it not to have kids? Like, it's really just like the fact that we've built a society where people are not getting kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkable.
Yeah, I can feel that like I guess it's not, or I hope that it's not that worse in Sweden. But I can feel that it's quite people are more attracted by having a career or living life. They're up to their own.
Both genders, and that's the thing. Like if you have an equal society where both men and women are expected to perform like in the same way, and they're both treated the same, then you'll get this problem might arise as a result. I mean, of course they want to have a career. Men and women both want to have careers, and then society like punishes that by, I mean, you have to make a society where that works, and I don't know which parameter you have to move. I mean, they've been trying a lot. Like Japan is sponsoring the dinners for people. Like, please get married. They're like paying for your date.
Yeah.
Just to have, and they pay a lot of money, like to.
I mean,
it's desperate.
Our sport is like, money wise, is a joke.
Yeah.
But, like what we get paid to have kids, it's like what is 1,200 kronor per month per child.
Hasn't been updated for a long time, I think.
But of course, we also get medical care and schools and stuff. But
so it could be a lot worse actually. But I think people here are like, I don't know now, but the fertility rate in Sweden has to drop as well. I think. I don't know. I mean, Sweden is one of the most, like, when it comes to division of, like, we're really separating into like super rich and poor people, basically. I think it's following the same trajectory as the US. I don't know if Sweden is one of the countries with the most billionaire per capita. Might that be right? I don't remember exactly, but we have a lot of like really, really wealthy people, and we don't know how to tax them either. I think people are getting, the taxing part is really important, because that's been the thing, like the 90s after the Second World War, basically. There's been like, I'll take the US as an example, but it's been like the average person has been a lot richer than they are now. Like now it's really dividing into a group of people that are super, super, super rich. And then like housing, for example, is one example. It's getting really expensive. Like regular people, you just can't buy a house. Like there's no way. There's no way in your life.
But that depends where also.
Depends where. Yeah. But of course you can always get a place in the country, like in Sweden.
But
really,
I understand,
really
like
easy.
We can't have regulations of how many houses you can own.
No, but we have regulations on how many houses you can rent out. Like if you own apartments in Stockholm,
Yeah.
like you have to be there are like you can't just if you're not a bostadsrättsförening, like if you're not a I don't know what's it called. But if you're a private citizen or whatever, and you own an apartment, or like you own 2 apartments, you have to be if you have 2 apartments, one of them you have to be living in, like you have to be written like there. You have to pay tax and whatever, as if you're living there, and you should live there as well, I think. So there are some limitations to what you can. You can't just speculate and just own a lot of apartments in Stockholm. That's what's happening in like in London, for example. There's so many Airbnbs because there's no limit. I don't know how their limitation looks, but not like in Sweden then, where you can just own a lot of apartments and you just rent them out as Airbnbs because it's a lot cheaper than renting them out as to people living there steadily.
It's a good way to make money.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And if you have market prices on all the houses, the rents can be really ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just paying the rent is, and you're really a sucker if you're paying rent. Like you should own your own place.
That's why we built a tiny house.
I don't own my apartment, so I guess I'm a sucker as well. But that'd be the goal.
It depends. If you just keep your income like way above your outcomes, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I wish I did.
Let's talk more about this AI bubble. I've heard other people talking about it, and I have tried doing some research about it, but I'm just not interested in doing research. I'm more like, fuck it. I'm kind of naive in that way, but I am. Yeah, I'm invested in the AI bubble, if you want to call it that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what you said, you said, okay, now we have many AI companies, and if we have a crash in the AI sector, then we will have just one or fewer AI companies coming out from that bubble.
It has to decrease the amount of companies.
After every crash, there will also be the market will continue.
Yeah, but sometimes, like what he said, the billionaire guy, like it could take a long time for the market to recover. It could take like 20, 30 years for it to recover. And I think it's like I'm not a market expert. I'm not an AI expert.
But you're pretty serious.
But I'm listening.
You're pretty. You know a lot.
There's a lot of podcasts I listen to, and I think you shouldn't diminish because the podcasts nowadays, like if you listen to the big ones, they're very carefully curated. Like the people they invite, they're really specialized in a certain area, and I think it's interesting because if you listen to an expert on the radio, that expert has to be selected by the public, like radio and whatever, and they have, I guess they have people that they are not going to consult because they're not, like, I don't know, they will require to get paid a lot or whatever, so it limits like the scope of, or like the width of people they can invite. And so these like really, really good podcasters, which are like, I would really recommend Diary of a CEO and Dwarkesh Patel as well. He's like an AI guy, and he talks to the people that are like working, like the AI engineers and so on. I think the economists that they interview, like a lot of them that has a lot of experience, I think those are probably the people that speak the least amount of bullshit. because what he said was like, there's no stockbroker that will tell you to take your money off stocks, like to take out all your money, because that's how they earn money. They need you to have stocks and to invest in the market, because that's how they get paid. So there's no reason for anyone of them to advise you to sell your stocks. That'd be stupid. And that, I think that's just, that thing is very interesting, because it just means that they're not impartial. And so if you're looking for advice from someone who's supposed to give you advice, they give you advice that's not adapted to a bubble situation. And I think we had bubbles before, and everything is so, like, on the topic that I'm not an expert, like, I've been listening a lot to history podcasts, like for the, I don't know how many thousand hours I've been listening to them for the past like 10 or 15 years. I'm really interested in history, and like, why do people keep making the same mistakes? That's one of the things I am really interested in. Why are they making the same mistakes, and why do we keep fighting each other? Because that's always what happens. Like, there's always war, basically. Like, there are some generations, like my parents' generation, for example, like they're born in the 50s, right after like the biggest war ever in Europe, and they haven't experienced any actual conflict, especially in Sweden, which we weren't even in the war. We weren't even in the First World War either. Like, we felt the war, but we didn't have like, oh, my great granddad died in the war and whatever, like they have in Finland, for example. It's just a different mentality. And now going off track, we were supposed to be talking about AI, but my point is that there's a lot of information to be gotten from these podcasts and listening to these experts that have a very like specific topic of expertise. Like, for example, this billionaire guy, and the economists usually have like an overarching understanding of what's going on, because the economy is like the result of everybody's behavior, right? Buying a house or not buying a house, like putting your money into savings or spending the money. Like, that's where you put the essence of everything you've worked to earn. That's where you're putting it. Like, you're putting it in the system in a certain way, and that makes the economy. That's what creates the economy. So I think they have a lot of good things to say, and I think he's on point when he says there's an AI bubble. Like, just running, like, if you would listen to another podcast of someone who's talking about data centers, they could tell you how much it costs to run a data center. Like, it's not free. Stupid insect.
Take it, bro. It's like,
and you can't
kill it.
And you can't.
Yes.
You can't just run a data center, and keep your prices of your AI service this low. I think you have to raise them. And I think a lot of companies are gonna have to do that, but they don't have to right now, because they're so overvalued. They have a lot of capital to move with, but it's not actual capital. It's just people thinking that they have capital. And so they have it because people think so. As soon as people stop thinking, it's going to be like, shit, a lot of the AI companies, the big ones, are not good. The small ones are going to probably die or get bought up or whatever. But I think it's really going to be pretty soon, probably. It's going to be... and also just the issues with AI. Like, now they had the Anthropic couldn't release, or they released Fable 5, which is the latest AI model, and the US government stopped it. They said, like, you can't give this to non-Americans, which is a step in the direction of like showing that AI can actually be nationalized. Like, it might be in the US interest to stop a company like Anthropic, which has a lot of European customers, for example, from releasing the model to Europe, because it's too powerful. And I think this is a problem that's going to arise. Like, for example, if you're in Sweden, let's say you're a criminal, and you want to kill someone, right? There's a lot of criminals killing each other these days, and you don't want to get caught. You just want to get someone off the map, and you have AI to help you with this, to plan this operation. Like, you could probably plan it. Like, you could jailbreak. There's a lot of like theories and like ways of jailbreaking AI, like making it do things that it's not supposed to do. People do that, and that's probably a guide to do it. You have that. You have like a 3D printer. Couldn't you just print like 3D print parts to like a drone and then just get explosives from someone who sells explosives and then like, remote control the drone from a different country and then just blow someone up? Isn't that theoretically possible? I mean, it's probably going to happen. And then once that happens or something worse, then what's the government going to do? Because then people are like, especially if there's like a political target, like if it targets someone in the government or like an official person or whatever, it's just not feasible. Like it's not sustainable for a state to have that kind of thing happening, because then suddenly people are taking the monopoly of violence that the state is supposed to have in their own hands, and they're doing whatever they want to do. And it's a tech race that the state will never win, because the state is too slow. They have to procure everything. Like everything has to be planned like years in advance. And the AI technology is just too fast. So I think there might be multiple ways that the AI development is disrupted. Like it might be a stock crash. It might be government saying no to certain models or just stopping certain models outright. And we haven't seen a lot of that yet, but we've seen, like, for example, when Anthropic was releasing Mythos, the previous or the other model, they couldn't release it because they had to talk to the other, like, 10 biggest American companies or whatever, and banks to make sure that they patched their systems first so that it wouldn't just wreak havoc on everything. And I think now that some European banks also have been, like, let in on the Mythos model and gotten to patch their systems. But I mean, and this is now, and this development is going like this. So this is Mythos, and this is like Fable 5, and what happens here? Like in 2 months,
we might have another straight line.
Yeah, I think it's like it's not sustainable. And then there's a question of what's the limit to LLM models, like large language models. Like, is there a limit to what they can do? Like, obviously they can produce enough damage to be a problem for society.
Yeah,
definitely.
Sure. But I guess you also kind of limit the people's freedom in that way. For sure, when people use it to kill each other, it's another situation. But
yeah,
I mean, I feel more and more that after COVID, more and more people are realizing that we're kind of trapped in a way of life, in a way of thinking that limits our possibilities, and this could be like that as well with limiting AI use.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a hard question.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well, because what happened during like COVID was the fact that suddenly the European states, which hadn't been to war for a long time, had to take some forceful action. Like they did it in different ways. Like Sweden was kind of softer, turned out to be good, but it could also have been worse. Like, what if it was a worse pandemic or whatever? And I think that's just you as a citizen feeling that you're in a state, because you're really protected from that in Sweden usually. Like, if you grew up in Sweden, if you didn't, you might feel like the state is telling you a lot of things that you should, how you should do things. But the basic kind of the default setting of a Swedish citizen has been for a long time that you trust the system. You trust that it's doing the right choices for you. And I totally understand if you don't trust the system, and I'm trusting it less and less. In some aspects,
I want to trust it.
Yeah, me too.
It would be so nice to just be able to trust the system, and just feel like, they're in my best interest of.
And they're doing it. They're not wasting money. That'd be nice to have them not do.
So we can pay less taxes.
Yeah, to have some competence. Because I get in touch with authorities now and then, and through my work, and also through my private life, and like less and less I feel that I trust that they're competent to do their job. Like sometimes, especially now that you have AI, you can actually just look up and you're like, that's not correct. You can't say that. You're supposed to do this. And you like, usually I would never question someone then, but then I go back and I was like, hey, aren't you supposed to recommend this? Or why is this the only idea, or like the only thing you're saying? Like that just unfortunately erodes the trust for the system. But I think back to the COVID thing, like that's feeling that the system actually has a power over you, that it can coerce you, like coerce you into doing what the system wants you to do. And we haven't had a lot of that. Like, we haven't had voluntary military service, for example, for a long time. That's like the very clear coercion thing that the state can do, and does and has been doing for a long time. We just had a pause in Sweden for like I don't know, it's like 20 years or something, 25 maybe. In that, like, the state doesn't coerce you there. And it's not very coercive, like the Swedish state. Like, it doesn't force you to do things. And that's what people are used to. And then when it forces you, you're like, holy shit, I'm being forced. I'm actually in a state. And I think that's like, well, you're in a state. Like, it's just a part of life. You haven't experienced it before because you're 25 or 24 or whatever. Like of course we're going into it, Shane.
You just have to go to school, and you just have to pay taxes, and you really, just have to own your land and pay a lot of money to them, and then they're happy.
Yeah, well, like, but I think going back to AI, like the AI perspective, I think is a lot, like, because suddenly, like obviously it gives you, I don't think in history, I don't think any like single citizen, like that's not extremely rich or royal, I don't think any citizen has had that much power that you have right now. You could actually decide, like, if you wanted to live as a farmer, like growing your own crops and whatever, and if you were okay with that, like if you didn't have to pay a lot of rent, and if you wanted to work hard, and you put your money where your mouth is, you use AI to create your own education system, like for growing crops and like having animals and whatever. I think you could theoretically make a very efficient small scale farming
with robots, just doing all of the work.
You could automate some things like watering and whatever, and probably sometime you could probably go into robots as well. But you have to educate yourself then. But I think it's possible. Like, you could do a very efficient job and live completely, like, to be very independent. You have to do a lot of work, but that's always been the case.
Yeah.
Like, if you were a farmer in the 1300s, like, you had to do a lot of work. Yeah. You'd be working 12 hours a day easily, physical work, tough work, and that's just. I mean, that's the alternative. Basically, but there is an alternative now. You could do it, and you'd be the best farmer on the planet, because you could educate yourself with the best, the best tips from the best people, and you could grow like the best crops, and
just GMO stuff, and
yeah, exactly. But you could really do if you spent a few years doing that. I think you could really be independent in a way that you could not have done, like in the 80s or something like that, because then you'd have to, like, who knows farming? Like, well, this guy knows farming, and you go to his farm. You have no choice.
Just help your dad on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And back in the days, you would be self-sufficient. In a sense, like, you would be self-sufficient. That would be the premise of existing, would be to have a farm, right?
Yeah.
And then someone would tax you, of course, because they would kind of protect you as well, supposedly.
Yeah.
Unless you lived in Skåne or something, you're fighting the Danish all the time and fighting the Swedish and whatever. As long as it wasn't war, you'd be doing pretty good, I think. Like, from a self-sufficiency point of view. And then you would be uneducated. You wouldn't have any other thing you could do. You couldn't just leave to, realize your dreams and whatever. You'd be stuck there.
Yeah,
You'd
we have
like,
a lot of opportunities now.
Your father and your father before him and his father, they all had the same farm, and this is what we have. And if you leave, you will get nothing, and you'll probably die, die alone, in, like, no one knows you and whatever. So I think, like, today we have a great opportunity to be a very self-sufficient, like, if you build a community that does this, like AI-powered self-sufficient farming, I think that's great.
Why not do it?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I yesterday I watched a documentary called Superhuman. Does that ring a bell?
No.
Superhuman. It's produced by Gaia, a platform almost, like a newsletter, and they produce documentaries, and it's about our capabilities as a human being, and I it's so fascinating because I realize and I think that we as humans possess powers that we don't know, that we are I think we're capable of doing so much more than we are doing right now in our minds and in our lives. And one part of this documentary is like it's an alternative documentary for sure, but it's not like some humbug spirituality thing. It's actually science based, and so one part was education classes for children and adults, where they learn to use their senses in another way. So they put a blindfold on, and then they learn to see, or more like navigate, without the eye vision. And if you see that documentary, you will actually, I think you will believe what I'm saying is, or what they're doing is true. There was a small child. He could go into the supermarket. They told him, go to that, pick up this specific bag of chips. He just walked in there, blindfold on, pick it up. They were also playing football with this, and no. And they can they put up a cards, and the child's, they can read with the blindfold, and it it sounds crazy, right? It sounds like what, but yeah. No, it's they have these classes. I don't know if it's all over the world, but this two cases were in Russia and in the UK, and they also they had an old FBI agent on the documentary, and he was telling that back in, he they had trainings. They trained FBI agents to practice deep meditation to read or see and understand what Russia was doing, like where they had missiles and such. If like agents, practicing meditation and just trying to figure out where the missiles are and stuff like that. And I think it's just really fascinating. And
yeah, well,
yeah.
I think I think we're touching on a subject here related to the other one we were talking about, like freedom and being stuck in the education system, for example, like obligatory school in Sweden. Like you can't homeschool, for example, which is something I know you've been talking about. And that's I think that this system that we're in. I'm talking about the state now, because for everybody it seems most people probably haven't thought about it, but the fact that you're living in a state that was created a long time ago, and the systems of the state are kind of rigid and slow moving usually, unless there is like a revolution, which usually kind of ends the states or changes it. But I think we're entering kind of a period in the human history where the state is too slow. Like it's not adapting fast enough, and it's going to threaten the existence of the state. And I think in order to protect this, like if the state is gonna keep existing, like if Sweden is gonna be Sweden still, which I think is a good idea, because the alternative or not for not having a state is usually worse, because that means someone else is deciding over you, because someone is always going to be deciding over you. Like that's just how it is. Like God. That's probably the best way to do it. And if that someone is good, and I'm not talking about one person now, I'm talking about like if the system is good enough, I think that's better than the alternative, because I think the alternative is conflict. Because unfortunately, how this world is created, violence will always, in the end, win. And the destructive, or like that sounded bad. Well, I would say like the creative force, the force of the creation of something, is always a lot more difficult and complex and takes a lot longer time than to destroy something. Like you put a person in a like for example, like if someone, like a politician gets assassinated, like the time it took for this person to grow up, go to school, get educated, go through the system, get a job, get all the experience they needed for this position, and it takes 2 seconds to shoot them. That's just how the world works, and that means like destroying is always easier than creating. So the power of destruction, like of killing others or destroying whatever, destroying houses, destroying cities, whatever, this has to be as little as possible. So we put that power into a system that's kind of slow and that's governed by rules for when it's allowed to use this violence, and that's like, I think that's the best we can do, really, as human beings. Like if we're not living in like a tribe society with like 100 people or 150, I think that's probably the best thing for humans to live in. But the thing is, the tribes are always fighting. That's what they've been doing. Like every tribe everywhere is always fighting another tribe. That's just what happens. And you're not going to develop this kind of society that we have with this technology and whatever in a tribe. It's just not going to happen. We don't have the capacity to do that. But back to what you were talking about, this education thing, like the unrealized potential. That's my point, is that the state is so slow, and the times are moving so fast. The development is moving so fast, and what really needs to change is the education system, because I mean the kids are going to school and they're learning things like with methods that are slowly getting, or I mean I think the methods already are really outdated. Like the methods is for keeping the kids in the classroom for as long as possible. Like math education, I don't have the source on this, but I could get it. But math education is made in a way, like math books, they're made in a way to keep you busy as long as possible, so that the teacher can go around, one teacher can go around in a class of like 25 kids and have a math lesson. And so that people are occupied enough and like stimulated enough with difficult enough problems, so that the teacher can go around and help the kids one-on-one. And we're doing things that are like in the education system that are just stupid. Like it's just neurologically bad to sit still in a classroom, in the same classroom, and learn different things. That's just not how we do. We should learn the things in different places. You should do workshops. You should do like a lot more interactive education. Like just make the day shorter. Let the kids go. Like don't have any stupid homework. Why do I have a homework? It's never going to help you. Like it's going to work on your discipline or whatever, but it doesn't translate to the rest of society. When you're keeps you occupied at home. Like why do you want your kids to be occupied at home? So that you can work really long hours, I guess. I don't know. But why don't you just let the kids find their own, like the purpose of the education system should be to produce motivated, Vad heter det? Like people with good self-esteem that are motivated and that are problem solvers. That's the kind of person you need in society. And then to give them a subject, like unless it's like whatever, nuclear physics or whatever, they're going to need a lot of education for that. But in a lot of other jobs, like even if you're an engineer, like a friend of mine, he's like a technical engineer, and he works with drones, like making light and sound system for drones.
Cool.
And he said, like, well, I didn't really know anything of the things that the tasks or the skill set for the tasks I was doing, I didn't have when I started working there. I was just an engineer, and he has some basic, like he has some. I mean, he's been studying for a lot of years, and it's a tough education. But it's like I didn't really use my education in that sense when I started the job, because it's learning on the job. That's the thing. And if you're not proficient at learning on the job, then you're going to be a useless engineer. So learning on the job is more important. That skill is more important than doing the whole education for like 5 years or whatever. Maybe you could have done 3 years and then started working, and you'd be better. You'd be better at your job than if you started working after 5 years, because you've already been working 2 years at the job. So, so it's like.
What up?
Okay. Ja, det kan jag. My dog is looking for me, apparently.
That's cute.
Where'd it go? Yeah, so the point was that this system is really locking kids into something that's rigid and old and not updated enough. And it's not realizing the potential of, like, for example, like a 12-year-old, incredibly capable of doing tons of things.
Yeah.
If you just let them learn.
Yeah.
Let the kids be with the adults, like at work. They could probably do some of my tasks.
Yeah, for sure.
And they could learn, like they could learn to behave in a workplace. Like now we have to teach the kids after school how to be in a workplace. Like you keep it tidy, you take responsibility for your actions, blah blah blah. If they learn this, if they see adults doing this from the age of 12, they'd be great people for the job market then. And make that a part of their education. Have them there for 2 hours in the workplace for, like, I don't know, a month, 2 hours a day, and then they go home and do whatever. Or they go back to school and have do some fun stuff that's inspiring to them.
Yeah, I have this scary feeling of that. We're creating like
consumers. The system is creating consumers. I think.
For sure, and like sheeps that can be hoarded into like a narrow pathway. But also, the school could be seen as a place for the child to be when the parent is off to work, and it's almost like daycare would be a better name for it. But a big part of school is also the social life, and that's really the most beautiful thing about the school, that you socialize, you make friends, you learn who you are and who you want to become in the school, but there, I feel also that is very much comparison. You compare yourself with your friends, and the school environment can be a bit dangerous in that way.
Yeah, I think the school environment, I think that the social part is really important about the school, and I think that's why you should keep the schools around. But I think they don't have to be as bad. Like, you don't have to lock the kids in for like lessons and hours on end. Some kids are fine with that. They could they're fine. But a lot of other kids are not. Like, they fall asleep in class, can't focus, really stressed out by tests.
I want you to be the teacher to my children.
I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. I really wish I could. Uh, uh, because the damage you're creating in a human being by letting them fail in a school system for like 10 years. What do you think? What kind of individual does that make? It doesn't make someone who's like who believes in themselves.
No, because that's a threat.
They just
towards
know
society.
that I can't learn anything. That's
Yeah.
what they'll know.
Yeah.
And this kind of damage, I call it like, you know, like you have if you're making a photo, like back in the days, making photos, you had a negative, right?
Yeah.
A negative that then you took that negative and you turned it into a photo, right? So I call it negative damage. Like it's the damage that you don't see it, because I think you do see it in certain senses. But like that's the damage you're doing, but not letting the kids, the potential be realized. You're not letting that be realized, and you're also destroying or really making their life difficult for a lot of kids. It doesn't have to be. Like, why do we have to keep the kids locked in the classroom doing the same thing? Like, you don't want them to be, all of them are not supposed to be like linguistic, logic people that are gonna be like architects or whatever. That'd be a disaster if everybody was an architect. Like, holy we only have architects. Who's gonna deliver the mail? Who's gonna go with the garbage? Who's gonna defend our country? Like,
who's gonna build the house?
Who's gonna build the house? Like, and I mean, since that's the because the people are different, and the school is supposed to educate different people.
Yeah.
And like, of course, it's good to have like the basics of English and math and whatever, but let it take its time.
But if you would dream and really like, how would you structure your child's schooling education? If you could really make it possible.
Well, I'd like to, like, if the dream like that I have right now, that I seem like this is feasible, if homeschooling was legal, then of course, would be to have like a group of families, like, I don't know, 5 families or whatever, that all have like, they're all, at least one parent in each family has to be interested in teaching. So you have like, you make a curriculum out of the parents, and it's the parents that trust each other and know each other, that have different skill set, and they all find things that they can learn the kids. And of course, the kids are still going to have like subjects like math and Swedish and English and geography and whatever. But it'd be a lot freer. You'd have a lot shorter days, and the focus would be mostly like the kids are gonna, you know, in the way that it's possible, they're either gonna, you know, participate in what the community is doing. If you're building a community, you might have like, for example, what we were talking about before, like if you have like farming, for example, like tending to the crops, learning about farming, doing these things, that would be their like school time / free time. Yeah, I don't know, like the free time thing, I think we could probably remove, like, because it's supposed, if it's fun to do these things and you're getting engaged, it's not really a job, or it's not really studying, it's just the way you live. Because now it seems like, okay, either you're free, really, that's the word, you're free to go home, you're free, right? After school, you're free. And that's just obvious, like, because the opposite of being free is being locked in, right? Locked up. So why are those opposites? That's, I think, just obviously wrong. They should be engaged, and you should, you know, let them find their own way to be engaged in your community or in the workplace or whatever it is you're doing. You as parents should focus on creating these things together. And I think that's like, and like kind of small scale. And the ages can be different as well. I think it's good if there's like kids, different ages of kids.
One part that I would love is that I could learn too. That it doesn't have to mean that I am an adult and now I know everything. That's just a very boring way of thinking, and I would love to participate in the learning process together with my child. Yeah, that would be beautiful.
And also teaching learns you a lot.
Yeah.
Like if you
exactly.
go to teach in a subject, like whatever it is you like to teach about.
But how would this be like financed?
Yeah,
I guess that's a big part of this.
So the part of the financing would be that parents have to take 1 day off each week, basically, because you're like the basic idea that I have right now. It's not refined or anything, but it's like 1 day a week you're teaching the whole day, or like you don't have to teach the whole day. Like it's not like 8 hours of teaching. Because that's not the idea from the beginning. It's like maybe 2 hours of teaching and then doing stuff together.
Yeah.
You're kind of facilitating this. And it's like, if it's 5 families, maybe it's like 7 or 8 kids, I don't know. And if the group is bigger, then you might have to have more people. Like, but they're doing it for free, basically. The parents are teaching the kids for free. Because it's basically also their own kids.
yeah, you're choosing.
So that'd be that'd be the sort of cheapest way. Of course, it requires everybody to work 80%, which I think is still good for everyone to do. But it requires to have a kind of a life situation and a job that allows that. And if you have a life that allows that, then you have the possibility to do it. You can't do it in Sweden because you're not allowed to homeschool. But that's just the basic idea. And there's other schools that have done this, not exactly like this, but are really like progressive in the way they think. There's a German school called ESBZ. I don't know exactly what it stands for, but they have a lot of interesting ways of thinking about grouping kids, like in not by age, but by what level they are in different subjects. The kids are teaching each other as well. And also like a part of the examination for a subject, like to prove that you know something, is to explain it to another kid who doesn't know it. So
and by experiencing.
And the teacher is there to kind of judge what you're doing, like to make sure that you are explaining it in a proper way for another human being. And I just think that's a genius way of doing it. And also splitting the kids into different group with different aged kids is very good as well, because that means like the 9th grader who has a really difficult time in math class will be in the same group as like a 5th grader who really looks up to this person. So at least in this class, they will have the highest status because they're the oldest. So even if they're like subpar, like if they're under their peers in level in math or English or whatever, they'll still be the coolest person in the class. And I think that's just the basic human thing, to be able to feel this like kind of acceptance or someone looking up to you and whatnot. And also like the kids that maybe the 5th grader who's now doing 9th grade math can keep doing math. Like they just like, okay, then I do 10th grade math, and then I do like, and when they're in 9th grade, they're already done with the university math. Because they're a 14-year-old with huge potential, and that potential is being realized. So I mean, even in the example you were taking there with superhuman it's a skill set that no one has, like, or very few people have explored. But even in the skill sets that are explored, I think that putting a roof above every kid's head, like this is how high you can get, and then we can't help you, then you'll just be bored in class because there's nothing more to do. You've already done everything. But you have to sit in class for these math lessons like 5 times a week.
You know, that killed my passion for math. Yeah, I had a passion for math in maybe 5th grade. And I remembered that I really enjoyed doing calculations and writing and then I remembered, like, my teacher, she was just like, I wanted more to do at home. And so my parents, they would write papers with different calculations that I needed to solve, and because I didn't get it from my teacher. She didn't see my willing to learn more. And that's just sad.
Yeah, and that's also doing damage. I think the most damage that does is to kill the joy of doing these things. And that's a serious damage. That should be criminal, I think. because it really limits the potential for a human being. If the society wants to be full of entrepreneurs and whatever, to stop educating consumers then, because that's what you get if you put everyone in a classroom. You're like, you should just like be in a confined space, and you should just do as you're told, and blah blah blah. Yeah, that's great if you're making like making an army or whatever that's gonna do just buying whatever shit that's on the menu. But if you want to make like which I think Sweden is kind of, that's my picture of Sweden, that we have a lot of successful entrepreneurs and inventors and so on. If we want to keep building this tradition, we have to innovate the school system a lot, or we have to just let go, stop controlling everything, take away all these stupid tests, let the teachers teach, stop documenting exactly everything, and just accept that it's a school full of human beings. Some things are not going to be perfect. There's going to be bad things happening as well, and you have to handle them, but you can't just shut everything down for everyone because something bad happened in one school. You're like, yeah, we have to have rules on this, and everybody has to document these kinds of things exactly, and blah 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 blah. No, trust the teachers to regulate like between them and to solve it in the school and with the parents.
You have taught history, right?
I've taught history, but most of all I've taught like I did when I was teaching fifth graders. They were
all right.
Fifth and sixth.
In history.
Yeah, we did some history, like Rome and all that stuff.
Yeah. Other subjects as well.
Yeah, I've been teaching a lot of different schools. Like I've been teaching in 6 different schools as a substitute teacher, and in one school, in 2 schools, I was a class teacher as well for roughly a year in one school, together with another teacher who had like a lot more experience. We kind of shared the class like 40-60%. Which was a lot of fun, and those kids now they're like 20 years old. It's really cool to see them develop, and that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to teach. That's what I'd like to do as a job, but I really can't, because I think the system is too bad, which is too bad.
But do you think we have to make this possible, this free schooling?
Yeah.
Do we have to move, or do you think
so.
we can? I mean, we're doing something about it now, just by talking about this and doing this. But
really, I think if you get enough, I mean, this is the thing that the historians keep saying. Like, the only thing that has ever changed society has been, or like history, has been a small group of dedicated people. And I think it's true. I think if you have a stupid system, you have to have a group of people that are just going to go, we'll jump first. We believe that if we do this, even if the country says that's illegal, we're going to blah, blah, blah. Okay, then we're going to fight, and we're going to get as much support as we can. And we believe there is support to get, that people are willing to fight for the same cause that we do. So that our kids doesn't get like taken by the state or whatever. Which I guess is the threat in this situation.
Yeah,
like if you're just homeschooled, I don't know what would happen. I guess the state would go like, why aren't your kids in school? And then you'd be like, and you'd have to explain, and they'd be like, I don't know. But eventually I think the state would probably take your kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, that'd be a disaster. I'd never let that happen.
But
so then I'd rather move than take that risk.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless you have everything planned, like, like, okay, they're gonna take the kids and we're gonna film it. And then we have lawyers and we
live stream everything.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess that's the way to go, to actually educate ourselves in like what laws can we use to our benefit in doing this, like
But I think also, like, if we want to do something, then we should start now, and you have to get it like politically.
Yeah.
Like if you can get politics into it. I don't know why the right wing isn't all over this, like innovating the schools.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
They want
I
private
understand that the
schools.
left is really like skeptical to anything that's not public school, because they're trying to create a system that's kind of equal for everyone, and that everyone at least has like basic education and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough, that's their values. But why isn't the other side going like, no, we should have more free schools, we should allow innovation? That'd be great.
But I mean, maybe you just have to do like a social security check, because the law of the school system is there to protect the child to not be like damaged at home, or you know, to have a place to go to and all of that.
Get a food every day.
Get food.
That's one of the basic
get
things.
education.
Yeah,
for sure. But a small social security check would do it. I mean, check the economy of the parents, the any trouble, lawsuits trouble or something like that. Is there criminality involved or something? I mean, if not, well, why not?
And I mean, there are very rare exceptions to the homeschooling thing, even in Sweden. I know that, like, if you're an like elite, vad heter det? Idrottare. If you're doing like, I don't know, you're a football player or whatever, and you're really like
hard level,
you're getting there,
hardcore.
like hardcore.
Yeah.
You can be excused, like, to have your own kind of education system, which is like, okay, that's fine.
I'm thinking right now about, you know, home birthing as well.
Yeah.
When we talk about homeschooling, like more and more, they're limiting our possibilities to birth at home for mothers to birth at home.
I haven't read up on that.
No, it's.
Is it recent they've done some things, or?
You know, there was a case here with a mother who birthed twins, and there was a
complication.
What do you call barnmorska?
Midwife.
There was a midwife there, and then she got cancelled, the midwife, because she attended a twin home birth. And the law says that that's a very complicated way of birthing.
The twin home birth is too
then,
complicated.
And then you need to basically do it at the hospital. But you know, the mother wanted it. The mother was super happy after the birth. What I've heard. You know, we need to have free choices. The most important part is that the mother should be able to birth wherever she feels most safe, and that will be like that's the most basic thing. Then all other like complications will lower if she's just safe and
But the problem is that the system sees the birthing as a medical matter.
Yeah.
And if it's a medical matter, then it's just about, you know, minimizing the risks from the perspective of just physical aspects. Like, and I think it's just like the problem with the system with that they can't, like, that the mental part of it is as important and even more important than the physical part.
Yeah.
Like, if you're relaxed and all that stuff, the birth is not going to be a problem. Usually, unless you're really, 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 really unlucky, which is, I mean, very, very rare.
Mean, for sure, shit happens, and I mean, if you want to birth at a hospital, for sure, do it. That's the thing. Wherever you feel safe, but in an environment such as your home, most likely you feel safe. And that's you need to have the right to do it.
And I mean, she had the midwife there.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like she was doing it alone.
But also, like, if you want to do free birthing when you don't have a midwife, do it.
Yeah, I think so. But Yeah.
YOLO.
This is interesting now because this is a question where I'm like,
I was the midwife in our birth.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know, and it's great that it worked out, but I think like you have to have some kind of, because I also know where this hasn't been a great thing. Like
for sure, but it was also a way of like we accept the risks. We accept it, and by accepting the risks, we felt much more calmer. And I believe that that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we accept, and we know we had a midwife, a home birth midwife, specialized in that. And
yes, you were talking
like
about the home
during
birth.
the pregnancy, that we accepted the risks, and with that, we felt calmer. And yeah, we had a midwife there, connected during the pregnancy. Checking the belly, everything. We didn't do any ultrasounds. And this was, I believe that this was like the deeper will for my wife. I believe that she wanted this. And afterwards she have felt like, okay, maybe I want to have a midwife there, and to feel that, or maybe have her in another house near or something.
Yeah.
But everything worked out super great.
And it's great that it did, but I'm always thinking in that kind of situation, what if something happens and, like, say the baby dies or whatever, and it's something that could have been prevented if you had a midwife there. Because then it's also a baby that's dying, and the baby didn't make the choice. So how was your process in that, like, in relation to the baby's life? Like, how did you think? Did you think about that? No,
not at all. I don't, like, if you want to do an abortion, do it. Don't think about the child in the stomach. I much rather have a parent having a child, wanting a child, instead of, I can't do abortion, then I have to birth this child. What the fuck? And then you have the responsibility for your lifetime to raise this child that you don't want.
It up, like.
I mean, what kind of life is that? It's just set for a bad raising for the child. I believe.
Yeah, really unwanted.
Yeah. And but in this case, I didn't think about it, or I put it like this: I believe that this was a gift for her. I was the one that took her, and the connection between us is like spot on. For sure, it came with a big risk, but the reward is also very big.
Yeah, and I think that really has to be factored in.
And we know, we also knew that for my mother and for my wife's mother, they had good experiences with birthing. And so, especially my wife's mother, quick, easy births. And so with that, we also had checked, like, okay, we have, it was actually 40 minutes, I think, to the hospital.
You kind of prepped that in case of...
and our midwife came 1 hour after she was born. I believe that if...
Just staying in there.
For sure, things can happen during the birth, but I also believe that during the pregnancy, the midwife will know. Is this can you actually birth? Is this a hospital situation? Are the parents, are they safe enough to do it? Are they responsible enough? How the baby is in the stomach and all of that, they know.
And it's interesting, I think, because we're in a society where every risk should be avoided, and that also has the time to take the time to avoid every risk. So then you try to eliminate every risk. I think in childbirth, in this case, it's difficult to know exactly what is risky. Like, is it more risky to have, like, for example, a first birther who's really afraid? Or is it better to have one that's relaxed? Is it better to have one that's relaxed at home? Or is it better to have one that's afraid in the hospital?
Think about this.
Yeah.
When you're about to birth a child.
Yeah.
And you're home and you feel like, okay, it's coming. It's coming.
Mm.
And then you have to get in a taxi.
Yeah.
And get into a hospital.
And get a room, hopefully.
And get a room.
Yeah.
And maybe wait and maybe move to another. I mean, meet,
and if you live
meet
in the north,
strangers.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, that's just...
and if you live in the north of Sweden, you might have to go for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like in a car. And
then
hope the baby doesn't come.
I've heard multiple cases where mothers give birth in the taxi.
Yeah. And that's not a good place to give
No,
birth.
my God, man.
So my point is, like, the system is completely, like, it can't see the whole picture. It only sees, like, there is, like, individual risks, and they can be eliminated at the hospital.
Vi kan upp den här lite mer.
Because this must have looked really strange to have it.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, that was good. Like, the system is really not good at looking at the whole picture. It just looks at the details and decides which details to look at. Like, it looks at, like, the risk. Okay, we have a risk of, well, I don't know, like some kind of medical issue happening, like the bleeding or whatever can happen as a result of the birth. And if you put it in a hospital, is it easier to relieve that risk? Yes. Okay, then it should be in a hospital. I mean, that's what the system does. It doesn't say, like, well, if she's really scared, that really makes everything a lot more difficult, you might have to use a different kind of medication to make her relax, but then that's not gonna, if you start it that way, then it's gonna be difficult for her body. Like, those kind of things that the system doesn't weigh in. And I think our system has the same problem as the AI has. Like, it can't see the whole thing. It's very good at solving different pieces. It's also like a Western way of thinking of things, I think. Because you have, like, Western Medicare, I think, is really good. Like, slowly, Western medication, like medicine, is realizing that the easiest way to solve certain issues is to do it ahead of time. Like, oh, what you eat matters. Yeah, great. Your sleep patterns matter. Okay, great. And the Western medicine is great at like curing cancer, because it's a very clear issue. There is the cancer, we take it away, and Western medicine is great at that. But like, if you have like, if you're burnt out, for example, Western medicine and Western systems for this is terrible. Like, for example,
what do they do then?
No, but like, so for example, I was like kind of almost burnt. Yeah, no, I was burnt out almost last year. So I was on sick leave for 3 months. And after 3 months, I was like, I asked him, like, can we extend it a few weeks so I can go back like a bit slower to work? He was like, I could try, but it's not going to work. The Försäkringskassan, the insurance, state insurance thing, they're not going to, it's going to be really difficult for them to accept that. What I can do is I can give you antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no fucking way you're giving me antidepressants. That's not the problem.
Shut up with your feelings. Go back to work,
you have
man.
no other thing to give me. And that's stupid. Like, and it's also like, what? Like, I've studied in university for like 4 years. And my partner, who's had 2 concussions and can't work, I mean, she's been studying music which is a difficult branch to work in. But I mean, she's been studying that. Like, if she studied like medicine instead, she'd be like a neurosurgeon now. But society, when she gets burnt out or she can't work, society just kicks her out the door and goes like, I don't care what millions we spent on you. we're not going to even try to get you back. We're just going to kick you out. And that's just like, that's such a, I don't know if it's a Western way of seeing things, but it's like, it's so stupid. Like, it's just like, you spend all the time on educating this person. It's very important that they get the right education, that the education system is quality checked and everything. We spend a lot of money on our teachers. We spend a lot of money on the system. And then they should apply for university education. We have to make sure that they can get a university education. We spend a lot of money for them to go to university and all these things. And then when they get burnt out, just fucking kick them out the door. And I think it's just what the fuck? Why don't we at least, for the people with, it should be for everyone, but if the system is like square and economic, why aren't the people with high education at least getting good sick leave, like, or free sick leave, whatever? Like, just make sure that they get back to work. Why don't we have a system that works in that sense? Because that's not in the state interest to just kick people out the door. You might as well just have shot this person because they're not coming back, because they're just focused on fighting the insurance system. And if they're lucky, they have enough money to get a lawyer and they can beat the system. Because that's what you do. And that's how you beat the system. And why should that be a thing? Like, I don't know. It's just obvious to me that the public system is just an engine of inefficiency. Like, that's just unfortunately how it is. And I think if you gave people a little bit more freedom to do their own education, or to innovate the education system, or innovate the, I don't know, like the university system, whatever, just let them do it. You know, you'd end up with a better system.
Did you try out the antidepressants?
No.
Never
did. Just exercise and find ways. A lot of it's just finding a state in your mind where you can accept your situation. Good.
For
exercise.
For
really.
dealing with
being outdoors, being in the forest. It's also great.
Yeah.
That's what the Ukraine veterans are doing. If they're not drinking, they're in the forest.
Training.
I know one of the podcasts that we're listening to, they were talking to a Swedish Ukraine veteran, like a volunteer, went to Ukraine. And he just talked about, I can really recommend that podcast if you're into Swedish podcasts.
What's it called?
Oliver Metz was the name of the guy, the volunteer. If you search for Oliver Metz on Spotify, you'll find it. It's in Swedish, so. But he just told a lot of terrible stories about his experiences of the war in Ukraine. And so the podcast, Max Willman, the podcast host, just asked him, like, how do you deal with this when you get home? Like, walking in a trench that's like made out of dead Russians. Like, how do you get back to a normal life after that? And he said, like, you go into the nature temple, like you go into the forest. Like, that's what I do. I'll be in the forest for as much as possible. And I think that's just a testament to, even if you're gravely traumatized from a war, that's one of the best ways of, like, kind of self-medicating and trying to, like, deal with all these impressions that you had. And I think it's the same if you're burnt out, if you have a depression or whatever. I think it helps a lot. And watch out for the screens, I'd say.
Yeah,
because the only thing the screen does, except for like this whole attention span, blah, 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 brain rot and so on, is that it takes away the time that you're supposed to put on to, like, analyzing or, like, kind of dealing with your impressions and sorting your impressions and realizing what the next step is and what your challenges are and whatever. And it's difficult to have those thoughts and to go through this process, and you might need to talk to people you know and kind of get input and whatever. But the phone is just going to put you on pause, and you're not going to go anywhere. And when you take the phone away, you still have the same issues.
Yeah, and also it's worse, I believe, or I feel actually that when I've been on the phone and especially on social media, I just compare myself to every other human I see on there, and and I feel just depressed after that. I like question my life. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, that's terrible. Like, who was it that said that? Some Roman said like the start of all suffering is comparison.
Yeah.
That's where it starts. And that you get a lot of comparison.
I
like I should be doing this, I should be doing that.
I need to be better at like just log out from work and from the phone and from everything when I come home to my family. Yeah. Just to be with them and with me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to stay true to that, I think. It's really a devil's device, isn't it?
It can teach us a lot. I mean, it's really a tool. Exactly. It can be a great tool, and I mean, social media can be such a good tool to make a change.
Yeah, if you're working, it's fine. But if you keep that to the working hours and not the off hours, I think, because then you can just, I mean, then it's like the same thing as being at a job, but you're not supposed to work all the time, I think. It's hard. Yeah.
All right, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great.
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too.
And I want to ask you, any last words for the ones who are still listening, and any thoughts you want to leave?
Yeah. Now, first, I just want to say, like, it's really nice to talk when you're a parent. You don't get a lot of time to yourself, like just expressing your thoughts and just being able to hear where's my thought process going is worth so much. If I have any like recommendation, I don't know, like if you're at all interested in like history, I'd say go ahead and listen to some like good historic podcasts, I'd say, and find podcasts that are like, that doesn't bring you an anxiety or just laughs, but find some sources of knowledge that's actually like actual knowledge. I'd say there's so much good out there. So like educate yourself. This is like a historic time where the education is free and abundant. So I'd say utilize that and be careful with your investments. I'd say invest in yourself and say in your skill sets. Take time to do it. And say
thank you, brother.
Thank you.